We knew Eberron was coming, but now we have a release date and more information. If you want to hear more about it and haven't seen it already, stay tuned. All right, folks, so as seemingly normal, there it is. Amazon has information. It seems like Amazon posts all of this stuff long before Wizards does. Now, I could be wrong. Wizards may have something up on their website, but everybody seems to find it on Amazon first. So here you can see pre-order price is full price for the first time ever, $49.95. Amazon typically has things for significantly cheaper. Maybe it's just because it's in pre-release, but you can see the release date is November 19th, so right around Thanksgiving time here in the US. And let us see what we can get. And there's actually some insight into this book when we scroll down here. So, where is the information? Or did they pull it? Oh, here it is. Okay, I was like, wow, hang on. This book provides everything players and dungeon masters need to play Dungeons & Dragons in Eberron, a war-torn world filled with magic-fueled technology, airships, and lightning trains, where noir-inspired mystery meets swashbuckling adventure. Will Eberron enter a prosperous new age, or will the shadow of war descend once again? So you can see it's called Eberron Rising from the Last War, which is interesting because I originally thought, and I feel like a lot of us did, thought it was just going to be purely a campaign setting, which would be the first time there's been a campaign setting released in 5th edition at all, which is a good thing, but it should be its own thing, right? If you're gonna... So everything we've had so far has either been Forgotten Realms based or system agnostic. Sort of like Tales from the Yawning Portal and Ghosts of Saltmarsh. They don't technically need to be tied to Greyhawk or Faerun, but they can be. So this is our first time ever we're getting a campaign setting. So for those of you who don't know what a campaign setting is, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, but, we got a lot of new players, so I'm going to just do a quick thing here. But it's basically a book that you could get that would say, have all these D&D books that exist kind of in their own world. Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, DM's Guide, Xanathars, all that. They exist, and then you can play them in whatever world. A homebrew world, or if you play with what the pre-written, any of this stuff exists so far, it's the Forgotten Realms or Faerun. So if you want to go play in Eberron, you would pick up the Eberron campaign setting and it would have all the information in there. Or the Greyhawk campaign setting, or whatever, Spelljammer, Planescape. You get the point. So normally it is just a whole book full of lore and cities and monsters and cool things, so that you can then build an entire campaign around the information contained within there. And usually there'll be supplements down the road to give you more information. This, however, is a campaign setting and an adventure, which I'm not sure I'm too keen on, because you can take something like Princes of the Apocalypse or even Descent into Avernus or whatever the new stuff that's coming out, and that's a whole book dedicated to only an adventure. We have never gotten in 5th edition a whole book dedicated just to lore in a campaign setting, but they're giving us both. And I could be totally wrong, but my thoughts are you could get a lot more if you went one way or the other. Release the whole campaign setting as one book and make whatever it is. Say it's a 300-page book, rather than being like 150 and 150 campaign setting adventure module. Do 300 on the campaign setting and then a separate book on the module or a DM's Guild release. But let's keep reading, and then we'll circle back and see if anything's different. Dive straight into your pulp adventures with easy-to-use locations, complete with maps of floating castles, skyscrapers, and more. Explore Sharn, a city of skyscrapers, airships, noirish intrigue, and crossroads for the world's war-ravaged people. Includes a campaign for characters venturing into the Moorland, a mist-cloaked, corpse-littered land twisted by magic. So, fantastic, right? The Moorland and the whole undead piece of Eberron's awesome stuff. But that's my point, I don't know if it lists what the campaign is. If it's 1 to 5, 1 to 15, but you get my point. You can only have, if this is all contained, we'll see, maybe it's a 500-page book and I'll eat my words. But my guess is it's probably around 300 pages, and you're going to have a significant chunk devoted to, the adventure. Meld magic and invention to craft objects of wonder as an artificer, the first official class to be released for 5th edition D&D since the player's handbook. We knew this was coming. We got our couple updates to the artificer already. The fact that this book is printing in November means we probably won't see any more Unearthed Arcana on the artificer between now and then, meaning that it's probably where it's going to be whatever they have internally, and then we'll get the published product in November. Of course, when the book comes out, I will do a complete review of that versus how it was in its most recent Unearthed Arcana incarnation, and we'll see how that changes. Flesh out your characters with a new D&D game element called a group patron, a background for your whole party. That's really cool. I really like the concept of that. Normally, everybody builds their own backstory. Now, I'm trying to think in my Eberron lore, which is a little lacking at the moment, but if that makes sense in the world, or is this an Eberron-specific mechanic, the group patron, or is this a background for the whole story applicable across the board? I mean, it probably is, but depending on how it works, it may be Eberron-specific. Explore 16 new races/sub-race options, including dragon marks, which magically transform certain members of the race in the player's handbook. So, in the Wayfarer's Guide to Eberron, the digital release on the DM's Guild, they had shifters, changelings, and Warforged, and then dragon marked races. So that's my guess. We're going to get official published shifter, official published changeling, official published Warforged, and then we'll get all of the different sub-races of those, along with the different dragon mark races that were contained in that document as well, which also be dragon marked human, mark of the making human, and that changes what you don't get, like, there's no variant human, you get whatever that gives you. And then confront horrific monsters born from the world's devastating wars. So that's good. It's going to also be sort of a bestiary. We're going to get some new monsters. It does not tell us the number of pages. 1.2 pounds. You might be able to discern something from the pounds, of the book. And I don't think it says, it just says explore lands of Eberron in this campaign sourcebook for the world's greatest role-playing game. So it doesn't show us the back. Well, this is a cool little Fennec fox winged type creature here, so we might get stats for that as an altered familiar. Right here on the front, we have a Warforged, right? One of the signature races of that setting. So let's talk. So, like I had said, I could be wrong, but if you look at something like, say, Acquisitions Incorporated, that is an Acquisitions Incorporated based book to give you that information, and then material at the end is a level 1 to 6 campaign, which is fine, and I really enjoy that. But it's also set in the world of Faerun, so all of the other lore that exists in that world and contained in other books so far in the D&D launch series, that lore all funnels into the Ac Inc. lore if you follow the campaign as it's written, playing it in Faerun. Which is why I'm a little bummed, right? So we're going to get, it's supposed to be enough to give you a whole, enough lore and information to run a whole campaign in this world. Unless they're focusing it largely on Sharn, one of the massive cities, that may be the case. But remember, this book is going to have to contain enough lore for someone to run a completely homebrew campaign in this world. It's going to have pages dedicated, obviously, just to the artificer. That's going to be a whole section. It's going to have pages dedicated to the sub-races, a bestiary, and then also a campaign. So, again, Wizards knows what they're doing in a lot of respects with this, so I have plenty of faith, and I'm, like, don't get me wrong, I'm still going to go buy a copy of the book, and I'm still going to do a giveaway of the book here on the channel for sure. But, I don't know. I'm also very curious what you guys think. I would have liked to have seen a whole source book that is just a source book for the setting without a campaign, without an adventure written. Now, it says a campaign, right? It's not like an adventure or a few short adventures. It lists it as a campaign, which means we're probably at minimum levels 1 to 5 or 1 to 6, right? That's like a 5-level arc is typically what Wizards refers to as like a campaign. Well, some of the newer stuff goes from 1 to 13 or 1 to 7, but you get my point. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think one or the other will suffer because they're included together? Would you have do you prefer it this way where you get both in one, or would you have preferred what I would like where you get all of the campaign setting in one whole book dedicated only to that, still includes all the races and all that stuff in there, and then a whole separate book or separate release that is the campaign setting in Eberron. It'll also be very interesting to see, because this is the first time we are getting a new campaign setting, how this does in the grand scheme of Wizards of the Coast's releases, because I'm sure if this does very poorly, Wizards is not going to focus heavily on releasing other campaign settings in the future if this doesn't do well. If this does exceptionally well, I think we can look forward to seeing some other official source guides coming out in the future. Things that other people are clamoring for like, say, Dark Sun, or there's a lot of interest in Spelljammer to bring Spelljammer back, especially like new folks who don't know anything about all these. So that would be pretty cool. But what do you think? Are you going to pick up a copy of Eberron Rising from the Last War? See, that's like another thing, like a super simple thing, but like I would have just preferred Eberron campaign setting. That's all it's called, because it doesn't have anything else in it. But this is Eberron Rising from the Last War, which I don't know if you know this, but they did have a whole thing as part of the philosophy at some point in the 5th edition life cycle, where they only wanted books that came out after to be books, like source books could only be books that you found in the world, right? So they didn't want to just have, like, after they did the Monster Manual Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide, like Xanathar's Guide to Everything is like a book you could find, like Volo's Guide to Monsters, or, excuse me, Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, actual books that it could exist in the universe of D&D that you could go and find. That was the whole thought process behind them. So I don't know if that was the process on this Eberron Rising from the Last War, like this is a tome you find in the library kind of a thing. But anyway, I am curious what you guys think. Are you going to pick up a copy of this for yourself? Are you excited that the campaign and the campaign setting are included together, the adventure and the campaign setting rather? Or are you like me and would you like them separate? I'm also curious what this means for those of us who bought the PDF of Wayfarer's Guide to Eberron. Does that get automatically updated to become this book? Are we going to get the first ever official published Wizards of the Coast PDF, which is something they've never done? They only do hardcover books at D&D Beyond releases. Are we going to get a PDF? If we bought it early access, to get access to things early on to support Wizards and to kind of show that we're interested in this, do we just get that and that's it? Or are they going to go in and update that and give us it in PDF form? Let me know what you think about that as well. Anyway, guys, sorry this went a lot longer than I expected, but I'll see you next time.